We are in the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena, California, looking at Happy Lovers by Fragonard. It was painted as part of the Rococo movement.
Yes, it was painted between 1760 and 1765. The Rococo movement began with the death of Louis XIV after ruling for 72 years, and the next heir was his great-grandson, who was only 5 years old at the time, and could not rule. So an uncle of Louis XV established a regency.
However, this time was when a lot of the responsibility was taken off of the French aristocracy, loosening the morals of the French court and nobility.
You're right, Louis XVI promoted this relaxed lifestyle of the nobility so that they would be less involved in politics. This began a time of relaxation and a time for fun.
Yes, exactly, and during this time many artists such as Fragonard would paint the gaiety lifestyle of the French aristocracy. They no longer valued French Baroque art, but now was a time for the Rococo style to come into play.
Right, and some of the characteristics are to go outside and embrace what nature has to offer. They used many bright colors, bright lighting, pastel colors in their clothing, and wispy brushstrokes. And when we look at Happy Lovers, we see a perfect example of a Rococo painting and Fete Galante, or the nobility at leisure.
You're right, and now let's really get into this painting, where we see two young couples out in a garden and embracing nature, and escaping from their courtly lifestyle. We see that these couples are having fun and relaxing, wearing their peasant clothing.
Yes, but they aren't actually peasants, but part of the French nobility.
We can clearly see this when looking at their skin tone, very pale, so they clearly didn't spend much time in the sun.
We can see their rosy cheeks, which indicated that they were using makeup. We see a hat right beside them, which is used to cover one's face from the heat, but it is simply laying on the ground.
Yeah, the French nobility loved to play dress-up. They put on a show and pretend to be little farmers with their own man-made gardens.
They are clearly not peasants because they're playing around. They are just in a time of freedom, not worrying so much about everyday life.
Now let's get into the story behind this painting. When we look at the young man, he looks at her as if he's falling in love with her and almost amazed by her beauty. And when we look at the young woman, we see her with a flirtatious smile. The man seems extremely in love with her.
Whereas the woman is looking for a little fun. We can see in her hand a bird cage, so she is a bird collector, and there's an even bigger bird cage in the bottom left corner.
The cage we see in her left hand could possibly want to receive the man's dove, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean. This would show she wants to add the young man to her collection of sexual partners. We see the young woman more in control and action, whereas the man has no idea what's really going on.
Right, and the Rococo style was also known as the feminine movement, where the women had power over the man. Fragonard, being the Rococo artist he was, would incorporate courtly love paintings as we see here with the young woman trying to seduce the man.
As we look at the background, we can see that the arch frames the couple, pointing the viewer in their direction. In Fragonard's painting, we see Rococo style in the background with the blue sky, where he used wispy brushstrokes, which is more hazy than the rest of the picture.
Again, this put emphasis and focus on the two lovers.
We see a coexistence with nature and man, similar to the poem of Oscar Wilde's Impression du Matin, meaning impression of morning. In this poem, we see man and nature both in the same environment, living amongst each other, where a bird is peacefully singing and landing on a man-made building, signifying that it is possible for man and nature to coexist, which we see in this painting.
Another piece of literature where we see this kind of playful garden seduction is in Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. In Fantine's early life, she was in love with a bourgeois man, Tholomyès. She and her lover, along with 3 other couples, went on an outing, and the setting described included a garden and a swing, much like the ones painted by these Rococo artists.